Welcome to Modular Games, everybody. My name's Kyle. Today we are doing an episode for everybody who, just like me, completely missed the train on DC20, doesn't know what's going on. I've gone ahead and caught up on everything, and so for your entertainment, I present to you the magic classes. I hope that you didn't miss the episode on martial classes. I'll go ahead and link that video here. Somewhere around here, there's a flying card around my head. Sorry. What do we need to know about it? Well, I already did an episode on the base mechanics, and I already did an episode on the martial classes. So today we're dealing with the magic users. And rolled in with the magic users, we're going to also have the priest classes. I had originally wanted to do an episode on martials, and then one on experts, and then one on magic users, and then one on priests. But DC20 doesn't split things up that way. They just have the martials and the magic users. So today, first we're going to be covering the core epitome of magic user classes. That's the wizard and the sorcerer. Following that, we're going to handle the priests, that's the cleric and the warlock, and then the kind of weird people, druids and bards, whoever the heck they are. Okay, wizards. Wizards actually get one additional spell. No, we're not starting with wizards. Sorcerers. Sorcerers are basically made out of magic. In this episode, I'm going to be covering a lot of the flavor-based features because Dungeon Coach already talked about the actual class features. But the sorcerer is basically made out of magic. I gotta say that the ribbon text feature given at level 1 seems like a bit of a flop in my opinion. Yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun, making your voice boom and making your eyes glow and scaring the bejesus out of some random commoner. But if they're a magic user or an adventurer or some type of nobleman, they've seen this kind of thing before. It won't scare anybody important, but the commoners they won't know what to do with you. The effect that really gives the strong feel for the sorcerer is that, I mean, you count up the number of spells they have. So apparently they have 3 extra spells at level 1 that are not on their class table. They get extra mana all the time apparently. They can treat their rest points as mana as well. They have this massive bonus on spellcasting checks whenever they overload themselves. It just seems like they're made out of magic. They never run out. It's part of who they are. And the fact that they have meta magic features, and then the fact that they have meta magic spell effects where they can mold the spells to work differently from the way that they're supposed to, I mean, I like that feature, but the fact that they just have magic for days, they never seem to run out of it, this is what really catches what a sorcerer is in DC20 to me. And then when we move over to wizards, they're almost like the exact opposite, because wizards, they have more spells on their class table, but they actually know fewer spells overall. And then they get that ribbon feature. Yeah, these are flavor text ribbon features. Yeah, they get a spell book and they get to add an unlimited number of spells to that spell book. That's for flavor purposes. It doesn't make you any more powerful. Okay, what do they get for their class features? Well, they're able to spend more mana per spell. They don't have any more mana than most people, but they get to spend it a lot faster than most people. They get bigger spell effects than other people do. And that feels kind of nice, you know? Well, the sorcerer can cast magic for days, whereas the wizard only needs to cast once, and it's game over for everybody else. All right, moving on, we have the cleric, and their ribbon feature is they're going to pray to their god, and they're going to ask a yes or no question. And hopefully the game master knows how to answer that question, otherwise they're going to get a head scratcher. Let me back up a little bit. The cleric is supposed to be a priest. They worship a divine being. Anyone who is religious enough to be considered a cleric ought to be praying to their patron all the time. They should be asking advice from their patron all the time. And the cleric has the ability to do this. It has to be a yes or no question, but they can do it once a day for free. And if they want to make a spellcasting check, they can do it again and again and again and again until the spellcasting check just has a really high DC and they can't do it anymore. In other editions, in other games, clerics had to spend resources on this. They had to spend a first or a second level spell slot on this. And from the perspective of the cleric, they want to do that all day long because they want guidance from their deity. But from the perspective of the player, they don't want to spend spell slots on something that might not do anything. And so there's a conflict between the player and the character. Meanwhile, DC20 completely fixes that because they can do it for free without spending anything. They get it for free once, and then they have to roll dice, and if they roll well, they can do it again. And it just feels good to do that. All right, next we have the Warlock, and I think the Warlock really puts the cleric to shame in terms of closeness with their patron, because while the cleric can ask a yes or no question, the Warlock can sit down and meditate, and their mind astral projects to the actual location where their patron is, and they can have an extended conversation with that patron, and they can do this whenever they want. What's the catch? Well, the patron decides when you leave. So if I get my patron angry with me, he can say I don't leave for the next 3 days. Well, you can make a check against your own spell DC to try to escape, but yeah, he can basically declare that no, you stay here until I say otherwise because you made me very angry and you're going to starve to death because, I don't know, maybe your companions will starve your maybe your companions will feed your unconscious body while you're astral projecting to talk to your patron. Well, it turns out that the Warlock has a lot of other flavor features. When they're selecting their spell list, they interact with those spell lists in a different way than any other class, which very much gets the player in the mind space of warlocks are different, warlocks are different, warlocks are weird, none of this makes sense. Okay, well, let's look at the stats of the Warlock. Now, many people might not notice this, but they have the exact same hit point progression as a rogue. Well, that's fun. And at level 2, they eat souls. He doesn't say they eat souls. They gain health every time something dies. They're eating souls. It's a very, very dark undertone. And by the way, they spend health in place of mana, meaning that they have a relationship with magic that's frighteningly similar to the sorcerer, but in a much more visceral and I'm about to die kind of way. And that's the Warlock for you. I have a lot to say about them. Okay, next we're going to deal with the weird people. And I'm going to talk about the bards first because I don't particularly like bards, but that's because there's a stereotype about bards that is completely uncalled for. I think some early players of the game were just really stupid about bards, and that's why they got their bad reputation. And the dungeon coach is right there with me on this, saying that bards don't need to have that reputation. They can be any type of performer you want. They can be a great orator. They can be an actor. They can do something else. They can be a dancer. They can be a juggler. They can do whatever. But let's go ahead and get into the actual text of it. So what is their ribbon text feature? Well, it's bardic performance. Okay, what does that mean? It means that if they perform in front of a crowd, they're going to get advantage on charisma checks against every single person that was in that crowd. Well, not really, because those people get to make a saving throw, and probably half of them succeed on their saving throws. But goodness gracious, this bard is going to get advantage on a lot of charisma checks. They are going to be everybody's best friend, or at least everybody thinks that the bard is their best friend. Even if the bard didn't accomplish anything significant in their career, everybody in town obviously thinks that they were the great hero. Because none of the other adventurers were actually telling the story to anyone. That's the bard's job. I think this is great. And also, there's this amazing thing where the bard... Okay, bardic spellcasting is kind of weird because they actually have fewer spells known on their class table than any of the other spellcasting classes, but they get 2 extra spells known that don't have to be spells that they're normally allowed to learn at level 1. But beyond that, they don't seem to have any spellcasting features. All the other class features are for doing other things. They have an in-combat performance that gives them an aura they can change up all the time. They can help people as a reaction at range. They can help people rest better, giving them temporary hit points. They can counter charm. None of those have anything to do with spell casting. They're all utility powers that are completely separate from casting spells. And so while the wizard and the sorcerer and the warlock and the cleric and all of those people and the druid all have features that make their spell casting better, the bard has features that have nothing to do with spell casting. And that fits, because that's who a bard is. They're not a magician. They're so good at their craft that they happen to gain magical effects that look like spells, but they're not a magician. And I think that the fact that they have so many non-spell casting features really brings that across. Okay, last one, the druid. And I think the druid is very much a home run as well. Gosh, the druid got so many features that are... It's everything that the druid ever wanted to have, and it's all at level 1. The feature that I'm most excited about, the ribbon feature that I'm most excited about, belongs to the druid, and it is wild speech. You can talk to animals all the time. Well, let's take a look at D&D 5. The warlock has a beast speech feature where they have the option to learn the ability to speak with animals at will. But the druid can't do that for some reason. They cannot do that. It doesn't make any sense. They have to cast a spell. They have to use a spell slot. They have to perform a 10-minute ritual before they can talk to the squirrel. Where'd the squirrel go? It took 10 minutes to cast that spell. Okay. But the druids don't have that problem in DC20. And they can speak with trees. They can speak with plants at level 1. They don't have to use a 3rd level spell slot anymore. They can commune with nature. They can talk to the clouds and predict the weather and such. And it's just so much what we want druids to be. It's not, I guess it's a ribbon feature. It happens outside of combat, but it's just so satisfying. And by the way, they get their beast transformation at level 1, not at level 2 or 5 or whatever other feature other games give it to them at. And they have the ability to create a druid's grove. They can establish a domain as an action. 1 action point to establish their domain. And they can make that domain in whatever shape they want. It happens to be 8 squares. And I guarantee you, okay, I can't guarantee you, but I'm pretty sure there are some optional talents later on that make that domain a lot bigger. Okay, what else for the druid? Do you need anything else? Because I'm happy already. All right, that's it for the spellcasting classes for DC20. I think that they are wonderful, and I think that, gosh, most of these are slam dunks. I'm not a big fan of the wizard, but that's personal taste. I see some of these features and I say, I don't want to use that, but I can see how someone else is going to be ecstatic to use this thing. And so, yeah, every single one of these spellcasting classes is going to appeal in a very dramatic way to somebody in this audience. I think it's wonderful. I've been going through these classes and I couldn't help myself. My mind started turning and I was already thinking of characters that I could build in this game before I ever sat down to try to play a game. That sounds like a good recommendation. I couldn't read the book without building a character. All right, congratulations, Alan. You've got a fan. All right, everybody. I'll see you next time. I hope you enjoy the game. Bye-bye.